Captain Li Huan floated in the International Space Station, watching Earth spin slowly below him. The blue planet looked peaceful in the morning sunlight. He had been on the station for 3 months now, and every day still amazed him. The view never got old. His morning coffee was still hot when the alarm started screaming, "What the hell?" Li Huan pushed himself to the main console. The screens showed impossible readings. Massive energy spikes were appearing over major cities around the world: Seoul, New York, Tokyo, London, Moscow, all showing the same thing. "Control, this is ISS. We're seeing huge energy readings over multiple cities. Please confirm." Li Huan spoke into his radio, but only static came back. He tried again. Still nothing. Down on Earth, Dr. Park Mina was walking to her lab at Seoul National University. She taught classes about alien life, though she had never expected to meet any. The morning was clear and cool. Students walked past her, talking about their weekend plans. Then the sky changed. A massive shadow fell over the city. Park Mina looked up and saw something impossible. A huge crystal tower was appearing in the air above Seoul. It was not landing. It was just appearing, like someone was drawing it into existence with invisible ink. The tower was beautiful and terrible. It was made of what looked like blue crystal, but it moved like it was alive. Strange lights pulsed through it. It was easily as tall as the tallest building in the city. Park Mina pulled out her phone to call her research team. The phone was dead. She tried turning it on and off. Nothing. Around her, other people were looking at their phones with confusion. Cars had stopped in the middle of the street. Their engines were silent. "The electronics," Park Mina whispered. "They're all dead." Above the city, military jets had been scrambling to respond to the unknown object. Now they were falling from the sky like dead birds. The pilots had no power, no engines, no control. Some managed to use parachutes. Others did not. In the nuclear power plant outside Seoul, engineers watched in horror as their systems shut down completely. Emergency power failed. Backup systems failed. Everything electronic had simply stopped working. The same thing was happening in cities around the world. In 50-kilometer circles around each crystal tower, every piece of modern technology died instantly. From the crystal tower in Seoul, something emerged. The beings that came out looked like tall humans, but wrong in many ways. They were 8 feet tall with skin that was almost see-through. Their bones and organs were visible underneath, glowing softly with blue light. They had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on their faces, and their arms were longer than human arms. They moved like water, flowing rather than walking. Their feet never seemed to touch the ground completely. Park Mina watched from the university courtyard as dozens of these beings floated down from their crystal tower. They spread out across the city, moving with clear purpose. They did not seem to notice the humans who were staring at them. One of the beings stopped in the center of Seoul's main square. It raised its long arms and spoke, but not with words. The voice came directly into everyone's minds. "People of this world," the voice said inside their heads, "I am Commander Thos of the Velnari Empire. Your planet has been selected for resource optimization. Your species will be evaluated for biological restructuring." Park Mina felt sick. The words appeared in her mind in perfect Korean, but she knew everyone around the world was hearing them in their own language. "You have 72 hours to surrender your leadership to our processing centers. Those who comply will be relocated to suitable environments. Those who resist will be processed for biological materials." Around the world, people were hearing the same message. In New York, construction worker Kim Jun was visiting his cousin. He had been in the military before becoming a builder. The message made his blood cold. "Resistance is not recommended," Commander Thos continued. "We have successfully integrated 847 worlds into our resource network. Your species shows primitive development. Integration will be efficient." Dr. Yoon Sora was in her laboratory in a government building when the message came. She studied military psychology and had read thousands of reports about how different groups reacted to threats. She knew this was not a negotiation. This was a warning before extermination. The crystal beings continued speaking. "Your primitive technology has been disabled to prevent destructive responses. Communication networks have been suspended. Transportation systems have been terminated. This is for your safety during the transition period." Park Mina looked around at the faces of the people near her. She expected to see panic, crying, or people running away. Instead, she saw something else. The initial shock was fading, and what remained was not fear. It was anger. A student near her picked up a rock. 72 hours, he said. They think we need 72 hours to tell them to go to hell. Commander Thoth seemed satisfied with his announcement. The Velnari had done this same process on hundreds of worlds. Usually the primitive species would spend the first day in panic, the second day trying to negotiate, and the third day surrendering their leaders. It was efficient. It was predictable. It had always worked before, but Commander Thoth had made his first mistake. His species had evolved past the need for strong emotions. They did not understand that fear and anger could make a species stronger, instead of weaker. They also did not understand that humans had spent thousands of years preparing for the day when their technology failed them. Every human military still trained soldiers to fight without electronics. Every human culture had stories about fighting impossible odds. As the 72-hour countdown began, the Velnari settled into their crystal towers to wait for the surrender. They had no reason to think this world would be different from any other. Up in the space station, Captain Li Huan was still trying to reach Earth on his radio. The crystal towers were visible from orbit now, glowing like blue stars on the planet's surface. He could see the dead zones around each one where no lights worked anymore. Earth, this is ISS. Anyone receiving? He called into the silence. Down below in the darkness where electronics no longer worked, humanity was not preparing to surrender. They were preparing for war. Kim Jun was digging in his garden when the crystal tower appeared over Seoul, 50 kilometers away. He felt the electromagnetic pulse wash over his small village in Gangwon province like a wave of silence. Every electric device died instantly. His neighbors came out of their houses confused and worried. Their phones were dead. Their cars would not start. The old people in the village looked scared, but Kim Jun smiled. Finally, he said, a fair fight. Kim Jun had been a Special Forces soldier for 12 years before he became a farmer. He had trained for situations exactly like this. While city people depended on their phones and computers, Kim Jun had never forgotten the old ways. Everyone, listen to me, he called to his neighbors. We need to organize quickly. Within an hour, Kim Jun had the village working like a military unit. He sent young people running to nearby villages with messages. He had others gather food and water. The old people who knew how to make things without electricity became the most important people in the village. Signal fires. Kim Jun told his neighbor Park Sung-ho. We need to build signal fires on the hills. 3 fires in a triangle means danger. 5 fires in a line means we need help. 50 kilometers away in Seoul, Dr. Yoon Sora was trapped in her government building. The elevators did not work, and she was on the 20th floor. But she was not panicking. She was thinking. Dr. Yoon Sora had spent her career studying how armies behaved under stress. She had read every report about military psychology from the last 100 years. She knew something the crystal beings did not understand. Humans fight better when they are desperate. She found the emergency stairs and began walking down. Other people in the building were sitting in the dark, waiting for someone to rescue them. Dr. Yoon Sora was planning. Her laboratory was in a special room designed to block electromagnetic signals. If she could reach it, her equipment might still work. More importantly, her research files were there. She had studied dozens of wars where primitive armies beat advanced ones. It took her 2 hours to reach her lab. The room was built like a metal cage to keep signals out. Inside, her computers were still working. She was the only person in Seoul who still had access to military databases. Dr. Yoon Sora began reading everything she could find about the crystal beings. The first reports were coming in from around the world. The beings called themselves Velnari. They had tall bodies and blue skin. They moved like they were floating. More importantly, they seemed to communicate using electromagnetic fields, just like their technology. That's their weakness, she said to herself. They depend on electromagnetic communication. They can't understand a species that doesn't need it. Meanwhile, in the underground tunnels beneath Seoul, Sergeant Major Choi Tae-ho was organizing resistance cells. The subway tunnels were deep enough that the electromagnetic pulse had not affected some of the older equipment. Choi Tae-ho was 55 years old and had fought in 3 different conflicts. He knew that when your enemy had better technology, you had to make the technology useless. We fight like our grandfathers did, he told the soldiers gathering in the tunnels. No radios, no night vision, no GPS, just eyes, ears, and weapons that don't need batteries. He sent teams to gather old weapons from museums and private collections, hunting rifles, crossbows, even swords. If it did not need electricity, it could kill the crystal beings. At Cambridge University in England, Professor Han Min-ji was making a discovery that would change everything. She was an expert in alien psychology, the theoretical study of how non-human minds might work. Professor Han Min-ji had been in her office when the Crystal Tower appeared over London. Like Dr. Yoon Sora, she was in a room designed to block electromagnetic signals for her research. Her computer still worked. She spent hours analyzing the Velnari message that had been broadcast into everyone's minds. The words were translated perfectly into every human language, but something was wrong with them. They don't understand emotions, she realized. The translation is too perfect, too logical. They've never dealt with a species that makes decisions based on feelings instead of logic. Professor Han Min-ji began writing a report that she would never be able to send electronically, but she wrote it anyway, hoping someone would find it. Her conclusion was simple. The Velnari had conquered hundreds of worlds because they had only fought logical species. Humans were not logical. Back in Gangwon Province, Kim Jun's signal fire network was working. Messages were traveling across South Korea using smoke signals during the day and fire patterns at night. The system was faster than anyone expected. The messages being sent were not calls for help. They were battle plans. Village 14 has 20 hunting rifles, one message said. Village 7 has explosives from the mining company. Village 12 has a blacksmith who can make arrows. Kim Jun was not just organizing his village. He was building an army. On the second day, the Velnari sent scout groups out from their crystal towers. They expected to find humans hiding in fear, waiting to surrender. Instead, they found empty cities. The humans had not run away. They had gone underground. In Seoul's subway tunnels, Sergeant Major Choi Tai-ho watched a group of Velnari soldiers floating through the streets above. The crystal beings moved in perfect formation, like a machine. They communicated without sound, their blue skin pulsing with patterns of light. Choi Tai-ho smiled. Perfect formations were easy to target. He gave a hand signal to his men. 20 humans with hunting rifles aimed through storm drains and maintenance holes. The Velnari had no idea they were being watched. The crystal being's skin was tough, but it was not bulletproof. 3 of them fell before the others understood they were under attack. The surviving Velnari looked around in confusion. Their electromagnetic senses could not detect humans who were not using electronic equipment. Dr. Yoon Sora finally made it out of her building on the second night. She carried her research in a backpack and moved through the dark streets of Seoul. She needed to find the military commanders who were still alive. She found them in the tunnels, planning attacks with maps drawn on paper and messages carried by human runners. It looked primitive, but it was working. "I know how to beat them," she told Sergeant Major Choi Tae-ho. "They can't fight what they can't understand, and they can't understand us." The 72-hour deadline was approaching. Around the world, crystal towers waited for humans to surrender their leaders. In their databases, the Velnari had detailed information about 847 species they had conquered. All had followed the same pattern: panic, negotiation, surrender. But human behavior was not in their databases. In rural Korea, Kim Jun lit a signal fire that sent a message across the country. "We are ready." In Seoul's tunnels, Sergeant Major Choi Tae-ho sharpened a bayonet that was older than his grandfather. "We are coming." In her laboratory files, Dr. Yoon Sora wrote the final line of her analysis. They picked the wrong species to make desperate. The 72 hours were almost over. The Velnari expected surrender. They were about to learn what happened when you cornered the only species in the galaxy that got more dangerous when it was afraid. Agent Ko Soon-ho had been a spy for 15 years before the Crystal Towers appeared. Now he was using skills that should not have worked on an advanced alien species. The problem was the Velnari had never learned to lie. Ko Soon-ho walked right up to the Crystal Tower in Seoul, wearing a Velnari uniform that he had stolen from a dead alien soldier. The uniform did not fit him properly. He was too short and had the wrong number of eyes. But he walked with confidence. The Velnari guards at the entrance scanned him with their blue light sensors. The technology should have identified him as human immediately. But Ko Soon-ho did something the Velnari could not process. He acted like he belonged there. "Inspection duty." Ko Soon-ho said in broken Velnari language that he had learned by listening to their communications. Commander Thos wants internal security check. The guards were confused. Their sensors said he was human, but his behavior said he was Velnari. In their logical minds, this was impossible. A human would be afraid, hiding, trying to run away. This creature was calm and acting with authority. Their brains could not handle the contradiction, so they accepted the more logical explanation. Their sensors were malfunctioning. Ko Soon-ho walked into the crystal tower. Inside, the tower was even more beautiful and terrible than it looked from outside. The walls pulsed with blue energy. Strange symbols floated in the air like living writing. Velnari technicians floated between control stations, their 4 eyes monitoring dozens of screens at once. Ko Soon-ho had no idea what any of the technology did, but he walked through it like he had been there 100 times before. When a Velnari technician looked at him with curiosity, Ko Soon-ho nodded and pointed at a random screen as if he was checking it. The technician went back to work. After 2 hours of wandering through the tower, Ko Soon-ho found what he was looking for, a data archive room. The Velnari kept their most important information here. He plugged a human-made recording device into their system. The device should not have worked with alien technology, but humans were very good at making incompatible things work together through pure stubbornness. What Ko Soon-ho discovered changed everything. The Velnari were not conquerors. They were refugees. The data files told a terrible story. The Velnari had once lived on a beautiful world far across the galaxy. They had been peaceful, logical, and advanced. Then something had come to their world, something they called the Devourers. The Devourers consumed entire planets, not just the resources, everything. The rocks, the air, even the space around the planet. They left nothing but empty darkness. The Velnari had fled in their crystal ships, but the Devourers followed them. For thousands of years, the Velnari had been running across the galaxy, taking resources from other worlds to fuel their escape. They had convinced themselves that they were helping primitive species by integrating them into their empire. But Ko Soon-ho could see the truth in their data files. The 847 worlds they had conquered were all empty now, used up and abandoned when the Devourers got too close. Earth was just their latest stop. Meanwhile, in a workshop in Busan, engineer Oh Young-soo was doing something that the Velnari would have said was impossible. He was making their technology work better than they had designed it. Oh Young-soo had found a piece of Velnari equipment in the wreckage of one of their scout ships. The device was some kind of energy weapon, but it had been damaged in the crash. Any Velnari engineer would have followed the logical repair procedures. They would have replaced the damaged parts with identical components and restored the device to its original specifications. Oh Young-soo did not know the logical way to fix it, so he used human engineering instead. He connected the broken parts with copper wire. He powered it with car batteries. He held the loose pieces together with tape and determination. The weapon should not have worked. By every rule of Velnari technology, it should have exploded or done nothing. Instead, it worked better than it had when it was new. Oh Young-soo had accidentally discovered something that would terrify Velnari scientists. Human intuition could improve their technology in ways that logic never could. In Seoul, Captain Nam Soo-jin was preparing for the most important battle of her life. She had gathered 200 soldiers in the subway tunnels beneath the Crystal Tower. They had hunting rifles, crossbows, and homemade explosives. Against Velnari energy weapons and force fields, they should have had no chance. Captain Nam Soo-jin had read every military manual ever written about fighting against superior forces. The answer was always the same: do what your enemy does not expect. The Velnari have conquered hundreds of worlds, she told her soldiers. Every time, the primitive species did what logic said they should do. They hid when they were outnumbered. They ran when they were outgunned. They surrendered when they were defeated. She looked at each of their faces in the dim light of oil lamps and candles. We are not going to do what logic says we should do. The attack began at midnight on the third day. Captain Nam Soo-jin's soldiers came up from the sewers, the subway tunnels, and the building foundations. They attacked from every direction at once. The Velnari had sensors that could detect electronic equipment from kilometers away, but they could not detect humans with simple weapons who moved by pure courage instead of tactical advantage. The crystal beings' energy shields stopped bullets and energy blasts, but they were not designed to stop arrows. Their advanced armor protected them from high-tech weapons, but not from homemade explosives that used chemistry instead of electronics. Most importantly, the Velnari could not understand human tactics. When Namsu Jin's soldiers were outnumbered, they attacked harder. When they were wounded, they fought more desperately. When their friends were killed, they became more dangerous, not less. This behavior was not in any Velnari database. It went against every logical response to combat stress. Inside the Crystal Tower, Commander Thas watched his forces being pushed back by primitive humans with crude weapons. His tactical computers could not calculate effective countermeasures because human behavior did not follow logical patterns. "How are they winning?" he asked his advisors. "Their technology is thousands of years behind ours. Their weapons are ineffective against our defenses. Their numbers are insufficient for victory." None of his advisors had an answer that made sense. Outside, Captain Namsu Jin led her soldiers up the Crystal Tower's main structure. They climbed using ropes and climbing gear, moving like mountain climbers instead of soldiers. The Velnari had never seen an army that treated a fortified position like a climbing challenge. When Namsu Jin reached the top of the tower, she planted a South Korean flag and a simple message written in Korean: "This is our world." Around the globe, similar attacks were succeeding. In New York, human soldiers were using the city's steam tunnels to attack the Crystal Tower from below. In Tokyo, fighters were using motorcycles that ran on alcohol fuel to outmaneuver Velnari hover vehicles. In London, Moscow, and Sydney, the pattern was the same. Humans were winning battles they should have lost using methods that should not have worked. Commander Thas began to understand that his species had made a terrible mistake. They had not invaded a primitive world. They had cornered the one species in the galaxy that became more dangerous when it was desperate. For the first time in thousands of years, the Velnari considered something they had never needed to consider before: retreat. But Kosun-ho's stolen data files revealed an even more terrifying truth. The Velnari's long flight across the galaxy had been tracked. The Devourers were still following their trail, and they were getting closer to Earth. Admiral Baek Do-hyun stood on a mountaintop in the Korean DMZ, looking at a sight that would have been impossible just 1 week ago. Across the valley, signal fires burned in perfect coordination, carrying military orders from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean. The electromagnetic pulse that was supposed to cripple human civilization had done the opposite. It had forced humanity to remember older, simpler ways of communication that no advanced alien species could intercept or understand. "Mirror flash from Sector 7, reported Lieutenant Park Ji-won, reading the reflected sunlight signals through binoculars. "New York reports Crystal Tower 70% disabled. Request permission to begin Phase 2. Admiral Baek Do-hyun smiled grimly. Phase 2 was not in any military manual. It was a plan that only humans would be crazy enough to attempt. "Send confirmation," he said. "All sectors. Begin Phase 2. Time to show these crystal bastards what happens when you pick a fight with the wrong species." Around the world, the message went out through methods that were older than written history. Smoke signals, mirror flashes, drum beats, and signal flags carried the same message to every continent. The hunters have become the hunted. In Seoul, Dr. Shin Hye-jin was making a discovery that should have been impossible. She was a biomedical engineer who specialized in human adaptation to extreme environments. When Ko Soon-ho brought her captured Velnari biotechnology, she had expected to study it for months before understanding how it worked. Instead, she understood it immediately. "This is incredible," she told Ko Soon-ho as she examined the alien medical devices. "Their biotechnology is designed for logical, predictable biology. Human biology is chaotic, adaptive, and completely unpredictable. We can use their own technology better than they can." Dr. Shin Hye-jin began modifying Velnari medical enhancement devices to work with human physiology. The process should have taken years of careful research. Instead, she made it work through pure human intuition and the willingness to experiment on herself. The first enhanced human soldier was created 12 hours later. Private Yoon Tae-min had volunteered to test Dr. Shin Hye-jin's modifications. The Velnari biotechnology merged with his human biology in ways that terrified alien observers monitoring from orbit. Yoon Tae-min could now run at 40 kilometers per hour. His reflexes were 3 times faster than normal. His wounds healed in minutes instead of weeks. Most disturbing to the Velnari, He could coordinate with other enhanced humans through methods that seemed like telepathy, but were actually just human emotional bonds, amplified by alien technology. Within days, Dr. Shin Hee-jin had enhanced 50 soldiers. Within a week, she had enhanced 500. The Velnari watched in horror as humans took their most advanced biotechnology and improved it through sheer biological. Chaos Commander Lim Sungmin was leading one of these enhanced human units when they achieved the impossible. They captured a Velnari command ship. The ship was hovering 2 kilometers above Seoul, coordinating Velnari forces across Asia. It was protected by energy shields that could stop any human weapon. It was surrounded by fighter craft with weapons that could destroy city blocks. Commander Lim Sung-min's plan was simple: pretend to be dead, then attack when the enemy came to investigate. "This is insane," said Sergeant Kim Woo-jin, one of Lim Sung-min's enhanced soldiers. "We're going to jump out of helicopters without parachutes, crash into the ground, play dead, and then somehow fight our way onto an alien spaceship." "That's right," Lim Sung-min replied. "Any questions?" "Just one," Kim Woo-jin said. "When do we start?" The attack began at dawn. Transport helicopters that ran on alcohol fuel carried Lim Sung-min's unit to within 5 kilometers of the Velnari command ship. The helicopters were immediately shot down by alien fighters. The enhanced humans fell from the sky like meteors, crashing into Seoul's streets at speeds that should have killed them instantly. But their enhanced biology absorbed impacts that would have shattered normal humans. They lay still among the wreckage, looking dead. Velnari recovery teams came down to confirm the kills and analyze human enhancement technology. This was standard procedure. They had done it on hundreds of worlds. They had never fought a species that weaponized apparent death. When the first Velnari scientist knelt down to examine Kim Woo-jin's corpse, Kim Woo-jin opened his eyes and smiled. "Surprise," he said in perfect Velnari, then broke the alien's neck with his bare hands. The enhanced humans moved through the Velnari forces like a nightmare. They coordinated without communication, fought harder when wounded, and adapted to alien tactics faster than the Velnari could respond. Commander Lim Sung-min led his team onto the command ship using a tactic that existed in no military database. They climbed up the ship's energy tether like it was a rope, moving so fast that the Velnari defensive systems could not target them. Inside the ship, they found something that changed the war: complete intelligence on Velnari operations across the galaxy. "Dear God," whispered Dr. Park Min-ho, the team's intelligence specialist. "They've destroyed 847 worlds, billions of species, and they're running from something even worse." The data showed the location of every Velnari fleet, every refugee ship, every resource depot. But it also showed something terrifying: a massive fleet of unknown ships following the Velnari trail across the galaxy. The Devourers were only 6 months behind. Meanwhile, space engineer Kwon Mi-young was completing the most ambitious project in human history. Using captured Velnari shipyards, she was modifying their entire fleet with human engineering principles. "This is completely insane," said Chief Engineer Oh Sang-ho as he watched Kwon Mi-young install human-designed redundant systems throughout a Velnari battleship. "You're taking the most advanced ships in the galaxy and making them work like human machines." "Exactly," Kwon Mi-young replied. "Velnari ships are efficient, logical, and predictable. When they break completely. When we're done with them, they'll break in human ways." "What does that mean?" "It means they'll break in ways that make them more dangerous, not less." The modified Velnari ships were technological nightmares. They had backup systems for their backup systems. When their primary weapons failed, secondary systems would activate automatically. When those failed, the ships would turn into guided missiles. Most importantly, they were designed with fail-deadly mechanisms that would activate if the Devourers tried to consume them. The ships would become bombs that could damage even cosmic-level predators. General Song Kyung-ho received the final report from Admiral Baek Do-hyun as the sun set over Seoul. All crystal towers neutralized. Velnari ground forces eliminated or in retreat. Fleet assets under human control. "What about their main forces?" General Song asked. "Running for the outer system, but they can't run fast enough. Our modified ships are faster than their original designs." "Good. Send them a message." The message that went out to the fleeing Velnari fleet was simple and direct. This is General Song Kyung-ho of Earth Defense Forces. You have one choice: surrender and face judgment or be destroyed. You have 1 hour to decide. Commander Thos received the message aboard his flagship as it fled toward the edge of the solar system. Around him, his advisors were in various states of shock and disbelief. They modified our ships to be superior to our original designs, reported Chief Engineer Velnari. Casa, their improvements violate every principle of logical engineering. The ships should not function, but they are operating at 130% efficiency. How is that possible? It is not possible, but humans do not seem to care what is possible. Commander Thos looked at the tactical display showing human-controlled ships pursuing his fleet. The ships were moving in formation patterns that made no sense, but they were gaining on his supposedly superior technology. For the first time in his long life, Commander Thos understood what fear felt like. "Send a response to the humans," he said quietly. We accept surrender." But even as the Velnari fleet prepared to surrender, deep space sensors were detecting something that would change everything. A massive fleet was entering the solar system from the direction of the galactic core. The Devourers had arrived, and for the first time in cosmic history, something was moving to intercept them. Modified human Velnari ships with crews that had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Director Jang Woo-seok stood in the captured Velnari Communication Center, preparing to send a message that would change galactic history forever. Around him, human technicians worked alongside terrified Velnari engineers to boost the signal strength to maximum power. "Are you sure about this?" asked Commander Thos, who now wore human military uniform as a prisoner of war. "The Devourers will hear this message too. You will be announcing your location to the most dangerous predators in the galaxy." Director Zhang smiled coldly. "Good. Let them come." The message that went out across the galaxy was broadcast in every known language and communication method. It was simple, direct, and absolutely terrifying to any species that heard it. "This is Director Jang Woo-seok of the Seoul Defense Alliance. Earth is now under human protection. Any species approaching this system with hostile intent will face immediate and overwhelming response. We have destroyed the Velnari invasion fleet. We have modified their technology. We are not afraid of you. Come if you dare." Across the galaxy, advanced civilizations received the message and immediately began evacuating their border systems. A new apex predator had announced itself, and it was actively looking for a fight. The Velnari had been captured, but they were not executed. Instead, space engineer Kwon Mi-young made them an offer that no logical species could understand: partnership. "You ran from the Devourers for thousands of years," she told Commander Thos in his prison cell. "You destroyed hundreds of worlds trying to stay ahead of them. You thought the answer was to keep running, keep consuming, keep moving. What else could we do?" Thos asked. "The Devourers cannot be fought. They consume entire star systems. They are a force of cosmic destruction. Maybe they can't be fought by logical, predictable species," Kwon Mi-young replied. "But humans specialize in fighting things that can't be fought. We're going to kill them." Commander Thos stared at her in disbelief. "You cannot kill the Devourers. It is impossible. Impossible is our favorite word." Within weeks, former Velnari engineers were working alongside humans to prepare for the arrival of the Devourers. The crystal beings brought their advanced knowledge of cosmic-scale threats. Humans brought their talent for making impossible things work. The result was a defense system that violated every known law of military engineering. Colonel Bang Yu-jin commanded the forward defense fleet from a ship that was half human technology and half Velnari crystal. Her crew included enhanced humans, reformed Velnari, and even some volunteers from other species who had heard the Seoul Defense Alliance message and decided they were tired of running. "Enemy contacts on long-range sensors," reported Lieutenant Kim Jae-sung from his position at the modified sensor array. "Distance 1 astronomical unit. Configuration unknown. Size, they're bigger than anything in our databases." Colonel Bang Yu-jin looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Devourer fleet. The ships were massive, dark, and seemed to absorb light itself. Just looking at them filled even enhanced humans with instinctive dread. "How many?" she asked. 12 primary vessels. Each one is approximately the size of Earth's moon. Crew to battle stations, Colonel Bang announced over the ship's communication system. Remember everyone, if it bleeds we can kill it. If it doesn't bleed, we'll make it bleed. The first Devourer ship entered combat range and immediately demonstrated why every species in the galaxy feared them. It fired weapons that tore holes in space itself. Energy beams that consumed matter and converted it into dark energy. Gravity weapons that could crush planets. The human Velnari defense fleet should have been destroyed instantly. Instead, they did something that confused the Devourer tactical systems. They attacked immediately. All ships, full assault, Colonel Bang ordered. Hit them with everything we have. The modified ships opened fire with weapons that combined human creativity with Velnari technology. Missiles that could adapt their own flight paths. Energy weapons that became more powerful when they were damaged. Gravity bombs that created localized black holes. But the most effective weapons were the simple ones. Kinetic projectiles fired at relativistic speeds. Nuclear warheads enhanced with Velnari energy fields. And collision attacks by ships programmed to explode when they hit their targets. The Devourers had never faced enemies who used their own ships as weapons. Direct hit on Devourer Ship 1, reported Kim Jae-sung. They're bleeding. On the main screen, everyone could see dark fluid leaking from the damaged Devourer ship. The cosmic predators that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years were not invincible. They could be hurt. All ships focus fire on the wounded target, Colonel Bang commanded. If it bleeds, we kill it. The concentrated fire from the human fleet tore through the damaged Devourer ship. For the first time in cosmic history, one of the galaxy's ultimate predators was destroyed in combat. The remaining Devourer ships stopped their advance. Their behavior patterns, unchanged for millions of years, did not include retreat. But they had never encountered a species crazy enough to attack something that ate planets. Admiral Yu Dae-sung watched the battle from the command center in Seoul. Around him, human and Velnari officers worked together to coordinate the defense. The impossible had become routine. Humans had made allies of their former enemies, and together they were fighting gods. Devourer fleet is withdrawing, reported the sensor officer. They're moving back toward the outer system. They're not withdrawing, Admiral Yu realized. They're regrouping. This was just a scouting force. Deep space sensors confirmed his worst fears. More Devourer fleets were approaching the solar system. Dozens of moon-sized ships were converging on Earth from multiple directions. But Admiral Yu was not afraid. He was excited. Send a message to all human colonies and allied species, he ordered. Full mobilization. Every ship, every weapon, every enhanced soldier. We're going to do something that's never been done before. What's that, sir? We're going to hunt the Devourers to extinction. 1 year later, Ambassador Yu Dae-sung stood before the Galactic Council, an assembly of the most advanced species in the galaxy. He was the first human ever invited to address them, though the invitation had come only after Earth demonstrated that it could defeat cosmic-level threats. Honored representatives, Ambassador Yu began, I bring greetings from the Seoul Defense Alliance and an offer of protection for any species willing to stand with us against the Devourers. The council chamber was silent. Representatives from thousands of species looked at the human ambassador with mixtures of awe and terror. You have achieved the impossible, said Council Speaker Zethkari, an ancient being whose species had been fleeing the Devourers for 10 million years. You have not only survived their attack, you have driven them back. How? We did what no other species was willing to do, Ambassador Yu replied. We fought back. Within months, the Seoul Defense Alliance had grown to include hundreds of species. Advanced civilizations that had spent millennia running from threats were now learning human military tactics, attacking when outnumbered, fighting harder when wounded, and turning desperate situations into advantages. Dr. An So-young published her final report on human psychological adaptation to cosmic threats. Her conclusions would be studied by xenopsychologists across the galaxy. Humans are not the strongest species, nor the smartest, nor the most technologically advanced. But we possess a unique trait that makes us the ultimate apex predator. We become more dangerous the more desperate we become. In a galaxy full of threats, this makes us the species that others turn to for protection. The report's final paragraph became the unofficial motto of the Seoul Defense Alliance. The Devourers have been running for millions of years, consuming worlds and species in their path. They thought they were the ultimate predators. They were wrong. Now something is hunting them. From his command ship at the edge of the galaxy, Admiral Baek Do-yun looked at the tactical display showing human fleets moving toward the galactic core. They were not exploring or trading or seeking new worlds to colonize. They were hunting. The Devourers had spent eons as the galaxy's ultimate predators, feared by every living thing. Now they were learning what it felt like to be prey. Behind them, getting closer every day, human ships moved through space with deadly purpose. Enhanced human crews worked alongside reformed Velnari and dozens of allied species, all united by a simple human concept that had changed galactic history. Sometimes the best defense is a good offense. The galaxy had a new apex predator, and it was actively looking for the biggest fight available. The Devourers were running faster than they had ever run before. But humans had learned something important from their alliance with the Velnari. No matter how fast you run, eventually you have to stop. And when the Devourers finally stopped running, humanity would be waiting for them.